Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. And today is the 28th of December. 4 days to go before the year ends. A lot of stories to discuss with you. We'll begin with the India's continuous attitude towards its minorities. This time it's towards the Christians, and this is what we're going to highlight. Not the first time, and we don't feel it's going to be the last time. The Indian government has refused to renew a permission that is vital for Mother Teresa's missionaries of charity to be able to secure foreign funds. Now, this is again, there are so many things that are happening as far as minorities is concerned, and this is just another step in that unfortunate direction. This is going to be our first story. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns COVID-19. Now, ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 is one pandemic that has affected the entire world, including Pakistan. How has 2021 been as far as COVID-19 and this pandemic is concerned? This is going to be our second story. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Tehran and, of course, the JCPOA, and a lot of optimism that is apparently coming out of the 8th round of talks between Iran and the other nations that might be. Then we'll be talking about the cold wave that has gripped most of Pakistan. We know that the first snowfall has occurred in Murray. You can see the images in your parallel window, and there are, of course, reports of a huge drop in mercury. Also, Karachi has received its first rainfall of this winter season as well. And then finally, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about a tweet that has come from the Prime Minister's office that talks about how Pakistan is endeavoring towards interreligious harmony and interfaith harmony. And of course, Baba Guru Nanak's 552nd birth anniversary and the Kartarpur corridor are just one of the hallmarks on which Pakistan has been working diligently. It is because of the efforts of the Pakistani Premier that the Kartarpur corridor was opened, and it is now thriving with of course, the coming of so many Sikh pilgrims from across the world. Let's begin with our first story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns India, the way it's treating minorities. And now today we're going to talk about the Christian community and its persecution by the Indian authorities, in particular with reference to Mother Teresa's missionaries of charity and how they have been refused to get funding from abroad. More in the following report.
The persecution of minorities and low-caste Hindus in India took a dangerous turn after ascendance of Hindu nationalist BJP to power. The beleaguered Indian Christian community, who represent only 2.3% of India's 1.37 billion people, was long been accused of practicing a foreign faith and blamed for bad luck in Hindu communities. Further diluting Indian secular credentials, India witnessed a dangerous spike in hate crimes against Christians and attacks on churches prior to Christmas. Lending credence to its crisis of credibility, on occasion of Christmas, Indian Union Ministry froze all bank accounts of Mother Teresa's missionaries of charity in the country. The draconian move left their 22,000 patients and employees without food and medicines. Further disrupting festivities of Christmas, Jesus statues were smashed and effigies of Santa Claus were burned by right-wing Hindu groups, emboldened by a lack of accountability. Amid growing intolerance for minorities, allegations of forced conversion of Hindus to Christianity have become rampant, and an anti-Christian hysteria has begun to grow across India. India has been ranked the 10th worst country globally by the Open Doors USA 2021 World Watch List when it comes to Christian persecution. Earlier, Hindu nationalist groups openly called for mass killings of Muslims in a 3-day hate conclave organized by BJP-linked hate-mongers. BJP's hate rhetoric against minorities has pushed India down the path of mobocracy, where prospects of genocidal violence are ripe with dangerous spillovers effects for the region.
Now, to discuss this attitude of the Indian government and the authorities towards its minorities, and today we're going to concentrate on the Christian community. We've been joined by Dr. Saif. Malik is the Director, India Study Center at the ISSI. Thank you very much, Dr. Saif, to have joined us. Dr. Saif, the persecution of the minorities, including Christians, is nothing new. But now to disallow funding for the missionaries of Mother Teresa as organization is another step in a very untoward direction. Where is India going?
Thank you for asking this particular question. I think it's a great matter of concern, not only for Christians in India, but around the globe as well. In particular reference to MOC which you are mentioning, dates back to since 1950 this trust is working, and around 22,000 people are being benefited from it in India, including the patients and so many other people, and this fund was meant for only the poorest strata of the society and the marginalized one. Now, the way it has been disallowed, I think it creates, it raised the eyebrows, not here in India, rather the world which is known as the world of conscience. Again, it raises a big question. I think where India is heading. India, by adopting subtractives, itself is ending up with the great danger internally, and it's going to destabilize itself in the long run, because the Christian, they are 2.3% of the total population, a big number. So earlier it was only Muslims who were targeted since a couple of years, and this time especially that too on the eve of the Christmas. The recent happenings are such a sad story, and if I refer you to the tweet by Chief Minister of West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee, she has also shown a concern that how this foreign funding that is only meant for the poorest strata of society.
But you know, when it comes to the BJP government, they haven't taken in stride Mamata Banerjee's tweet, because they feel that she's in the opposition and she's doing this just to create an outcry against the BJP government. This said, the BJP government, Dr. Saab, is I should say an example of new Nazism as far as the way it is perpetrating its human rights abuses to which its minorities are concerned. When the West particularly raises hue and cry over anything that is Nazi oriented, why not here when it is open to all and there is nothing that the Indian government is hiding in that respect?
In fact, this Nazism not a new story, it's no open secret. The way Modi government is pursuing the Hindutva ideology, and through the prism of RSS, which is the practical manifestation of the application of that ideology which you are referring. Alone in the last 9 months, there have been the 300 incidents where these Christians have been attacked.
Of course.
In this country. Even the World Watch list of US, they have ranked India 10th most country which is abusing the human rights. Along with that, this is not only the World Watch list, it is US Commission on Religious Freedom has also asked the State Department to take India as a country of concern on account of the same. So, I think now the Christian, the way they have been marginalized, especially in Agra, effigies of Santa Claus that was burnt, and again in Haryana and Ambala, same incident took place. I think these are the reflection of actual Hindu mindset. They are not only against Muslims.
They are against all the other minorities and religions that are not Hindu in nature.
Not Hindu. And secondly, let me add to it. Now, what the world community is doing at the moment, seeing, watching the happenings in India, I think they must take notice of this.
But Dr. Saab, what I don't understand is, you know, had this happened in a country, God forbid, in Pakistan or in another Muslim country, by now we would have been on the blacklist of every single Western country. But this is not happening. In fact, speaking of lists, let's also talk about fact if Pakistan is still on the grey list despite having complied with the more than 90% of the conditionalities that have been put by the FATF. India should by now be put on the blacklist because of all the religious terrorism that it is perpetrating. Why is there no response?
Exactly. This reflects the dichotomous face of the Hippocratic face of the world, because not only India should be grey list, I think it's a story is not to be, that should be thrown out of it, because it's a fit case.
Of course.
And secondly, beyond this, what all this civilized world is, if they are not just watching, they are also monitoring. This is the time they should come out.
They are turning a blind eye. To be very frank, this is what I would have to say.
Otherwise, I think the voices of conscience will raise the eyebrows and the fingers. The why the double standard in case of India? Is there any religious freedom? And that too on the eve of the Christmas.
Of course, and this is an auspicious time for the Christian community. But that said, you know, there was a huge report that came in the beginning of the month, in the mid of the month, that many of the churches were closing down ahead of Christmas because they feared that there would be the Hindu mob that would attack their churches.
Basically, this is how it is being done. As I mentioned, it is the RSS. They believe that probably since this MOC was helping the poor, they are apprehensive the conversion of the Hinduism into Christianity. So this is how they look at the other religion. I think this is the most hypocritic face of India.
But you know, at the same time, when you talk of changing of religion, there's the love jihad that is being perpetrated by the Hindu BJP government, and secondly, there's the anti-conversion laws that are now being put into place by different Indian states that forbid the conversion. I mean, isn't this also against the freedom of expression? Isn't this also against the norms of the so-called democratic values that India says that it represents?
In fact, gone the days when India used to be called as the democratic, pluralistic and secular country. Gone the days of Gandhi, days of Nehru's India are over. It is the Modi's regime where all these values are no more, and this practical manifestation is seen with a series of the events.
But you know, what is very strange is that at the same time Narendra Modi goes abroad, and when he addresses huge summits, he says that India is an example of a pluralistic society. Which pluralistic society are we talking of?
I think this is the negation. And practically the on-ground situation is altogether on the other way round. So I think, as you rightly mentioned, had it been in Pakistan, there would be an hue and cry and storm in the world politics. Now, where are the so-called civilized world? Why can't they take notice of this? I think this is the time to place India under the FATF regime, and they should be placed not only grey list, rather they should be dropped out.
And there should be other sanctions placed on India, because until and unless it does not understand the value through pressure tactics, it will not change the way that it has taken since the last few years as far as perpetrating these human rights abuses towards the minorities. And I mean, speaking of minorities, it's started with illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir Muslims, and now it's Christians, Sikhs, Dalits, and the list goes on, Dr. Saab.
Yes, this list is going on. I think Muslims were the initial target, followed by then Sikh, then the former movement you have seen, and thereafter we can see these Christians. So earlier to the, if you keep on picking the thread, so since the last 2 years, the way the series of events are unfolding, I think these are reflecting the true face of India, which is negation to pluralism, secularism and democratization.
Dr. Saab, there's another thing. The federal government in India says that the accounts of the MOC were frozen by the bank on the request of the charity itself, which I mean raises another round of questions as to the point of view of the Indian government that is trying to hide behind certain suppositions. And of course, there are so many other Christian leaders in India that say that the freezing of the accounts is a cruel Christmas gift to the poorest of the poor, because in India, the Christian community is not really extremely wealthy, is it?
Yes, they are already marginalized society like others. So in this case, if they are not being addressed, this unrest will be multiplied. It may have fallout. It may have fallout in the form of growing unrest in India, especially Dalits, then Sikh, then the Muslims. I think this 20% plus minorities, if they are placed in the tight corner with continued repression, I think I can foresee a great danger to India within itself. I think this is the right time for them to better wake up and take care of their home as well.
On top of that, this is a mission of charities that is being used to be run by Mother Teresa. And she has been a symbol of peace, of brotherhood, of solidarity, somebody who has been helping the needy and the poor. And it is like a slap on the face, I have to say that, on the figure that was Mother Teresa, the way they have been ruining this missionaries of charity.
If they cannot tolerate Mother Teresa and his trust and his charity, what else you can expect from India? I think this is the hallmark and the high time to create a concern over it. And especially this MOC which Mother Teresa has created, it was meant for a specified purpose. They were helping their own people in India. They are. If they cannot tolerate them, this charity work, what else one can expect from them?
Exactly, and the way they say some adverse inputs were recorded as far as these accounts. I mean, I don't understand it, and sometimes it really feels laughable the way they talk about missionaries such as this one.
Especially there's an adverse input that has been given by the ministry. In fact, there was an article in Dawn today as well on this same story there. In fact, they are coming with the misled facts. The reality is they are not going to tolerate any minorities which has something like
but
that.
Dr. Sir, where will it all lead to? This is the huge question that everybody is thinking right now.
They will ultimately end up with fragmentation in the society, disruption.
Isn't it there already a fragmentation in the society?
They will further aggravate it with the passage of time then, if it is multiplied. Then the whole unrest in India, if the unrest in India, I think it has very serious ramifications for the neighboring countries as well, especially in case of mass migration. That is why I think it's a matter of great concern. India must pay attention on the human rights within India, especially take care of the minority, focusing not only Christian, but their own Dalits as well, Muslims as well, and the Sikhs as well.
Why are the Hindu hardliners so afraid of missionaries such as this one? I mean, they say, and I quote, that the hardliners are saying that this is to convert people of other religions, and in particular the Hindus, to Christians. I mean, I don't understand why any religion would try to or would pressurize somebody else to change religion. And if so, how can one person just change religion on one pretext or the other? And how can you, on the name of this, instead of having a proper investigation in that respect, just close down a charity that has been working since decades?
This is what reflects their mindset. This is what their mentality is. In fact, it is not a matter of conversion of religion. They simply can't tolerate that some segment of the minority that too have a religious faith, they are growing in terms of creating ease for their own people. Especially, I mentioned you, 22,000 people were being benefited through this particular trust which was created on the name of Mother Teresa. So I think this has very serious implications, not within India, but it has, if these things aggravated, it has the implication for the neighboring countries as well.
Exactly, and it has implications not only for the neighboring countries, but for the entire world as well, because India is leading by an example that was set decades ago by the Nazis, and now India is showing that they can do whatever they want with their minorities, and the world is going to just not do anything, not raise an eyebrow, and will turn a blind eye to it. But I would really like to see to which end will the West turn a blind eye, to which end will they continue letting India continue with these rights of, these abuses of human rights and these barbarities. There needs to be a stop to that. or there will be an implosion of the community from within India as a result. Thank you very much, Dr. Saif, to have joined us and to have talked to us about this very important incident that has happened and the continuation of what India has been doing to its minorities. Ladies and gentlemen, let's come to our second segment now, and that concerns COVID-19. It is a pandemic. It started way back more than around 2 years ago, and the first case started from China, and then slowly and steadily we started to get different variants of it. The last variant we got to know was Delta. Now it's Omicron that is creating havoc in the West, especially in Europe. More in the following report.
The pandemic prognosis of 2021 depicts the impact of COVID-19 round the world has prevailed in 2021, spurred by more contagious variants, forcing the people to limit their social activities, affecting businesses and accounting for loss of thousands of lives. Though rigorous global vaccination drive kindled hopes of defeating COVID-19, the spread of new variant known as Omicron, first identified in South Africa, revived lockdown restrictions and travel curbs. The unprecedented spread of Omicron variant started global debate on vaccine inequity and dangers of unvaccinated people in low and middle income countries. The gap in vaccination coverage between higher income and upper middle income countries on one hand and low income countries on the other has been staggering, and according to the World Health Organization, only 7.5% of people in low income countries have received at least one dose of the coronavirus vaccine. WHO's target of having 40% of population of all countries vaccinated by the end of 2021 and 70% by the middle of next year was miserably dashed when only 2 African countries, Morocco and Tunisia, currently on track to reach the goal. The pandemic has exacerbated pre-existing inequities in healthcare access for vulnerable groups and global wealth share. According to the World Inequality Report 2021, the slice held by the billionaires has risen from 1% to 3% since 1995, and this increase was exacerbated during the COVID-19 pandemic. The International Chamber of Commerce estimates that vaccine inequality at today's scale could cost the world around $9.2 trillion in economic losses. In the worst-case scenario, with the rich countries suffering half of that blow, in order to gear the world back to normalcy, urgent action is required to forge global agreement on lifting barriers to wider manufacturing of vaccines in the developing world.
Now, 2021 has been a very strenuous year for COVID-19, whether it be across the world or in Pakistan. To talk about what 2021 meant for the world as far as COVID-19 is concerned, we've been joined by Dr. Zaeem Zia. He is a District Health Officer of Islamabad and somebody who's been working diligently as far as informing the public in Islamabad and in Pakistan, and of course helping them get their vaccinations and their booster doses as well. Dr. Zaeem Zia, thank you very much to have joined us.
Thank you very much, sir.
Dr. Zaeem, 2021, COVID-19, different variants, started from January, apprehensions from the World Health Organization, and then we see the Delta variant emerge. We see now the Omicron variant that is emerging and the booster doses that have been told to be given to 50 plus, and I think from the 1st of January, it's going to be for 30 plus as well. If I were to ask you what 2021 was as far as COVID is concerned, for the world and for Pakistan in particular, what would your response be?
Thank you, Baba. It's a very important discussion because since the COVID started, there was a lot of lack of information when you talk about like informing people and how people perceived COVID-19. So it took us a while as it started from China and also US and the European countries, and when it came to the southern South Asia. So we culturally we have different perceptions about new things happening and the changes happening. That's where a lot of people were reluctant to understand and then didn't want to know whether didn't want to believe whether there's a COVID-19 or not. But as the time passed by, you see how COVID impacted health systems, how socioeconomic devastations happened, and how people lost their loved ones. And there comes a time when people started realizing we have to take it very serious. In 2021 and 2020, both were a devastation when it comes to, you see socialization of the world has to change itself in terms of their behaviors, in terms of interaction, in terms of business, in terms of livelihoods. So now when 2020 ended, there comes the time when there was a vaccine. And luckily we had a relief of how vaccine has helped us, create a immunity in the communities where they're at risk, or people who can get, and the ages who are very, vulnerable. And generally they are above 60 years of age. But then we cannot actually say these are the ages, but anybody can get affected from COVID-19.
All right. Now, Dr. Zaeem, there's one factor that is very important. There's those percentage of population that has gotten itself vaccinated. I know you want to put your mask back on. You were really itching to do that. So, there's another population that does not want to get vaccinated, whether in Pakistan or across the world, and they are known as anti-vaxxers. Why is there a population that does not believe in vaccination as far as COVID-19 is concerned?
This is, every paradigm has its own, followers. Everybody has its own, ideology has its own followers. And I think when it comes to vaccinations, there are a lot of people back, if we talk about here in Islamabad, or maybe like world across, or in the country, there has been a lot of resistance because of multiple belief systems. People believed in, COVID does not exist, and also that they believed the vaccine might affect them in a different way. Vaccine might affect them in their physical health maybe, but these are all myths that the people started believing in. And a lot of people, when we have convinced, providing the right information at the right time, and so many of them, they have convinced their families as well, and they have come out to get vaccinated. It's all about understanding the concept. Why are they not believing in it, and how can you actually break that barrier and convince them to get vaccinated?
Now, Dr. Zaeem, a lot of doctors have done research on the different variants of COVID-19. Some say there are thousands of variants. Some are not important, some are going to be important. And others say, especially the neurogeneticists, that this is a pandemic that is going to remain in the world for at least a decade. How should one prepare oneself then?
And this is how it's been since the beginning, that the pandemics have. It has its own aftershocks. If you see how the variants come in, and how gradually the variants become less virulent and less infective and less dangerous when it comes to. And ultimately there's a transition, and the transition has to happen. Generally, if you see how this is the third year, we entered into the third year of the pandemic. And you see there is a lot has changed when it comes to the virus. So we expect another 2 years. It will become even less virulent, even less dangerous, even less,
Do you feel that it will get less virulent? Because, as far as, I don't know about the virulence, but they say that the Omicron variant that has now emerged from Africa, from South Africa, in fact, is spreading at a more rapid pace than even the other variants like Delta and Delta Plus.
When it comes to, the mortality, when you look at the mortality and the fatality rate of the virus, if you see, it's about the numbers.
Okay.
It has, of course, very high transmissibility. Say if Delta virus could infect 50,000 people, the very important factor to know is the doubling rate of the how many days does it take for the Delta to double its numbers.
All right.
Or Omicron. Omicron takes 2 days to double its numbers. And then if you look at the Delta, it takes 14 days.
All right. So of course, there's a huge difference as far as.
So it's about the numbers. The fatality might be lower, but the number of people when they increase, and the number of people getting infected. So the people coming into the infected arena, and then from there to the hospitalizations, and critical care, and then deaths. So generally ends up with the larger number of deaths then. So we have to take Omicron very serious. It's not that we are not taking it very serious.
We have now cases in Islamabad as well. We have cases in other cities as well.
It will happen. It's a virus. It's a pandemic.
And it's
and
bound
it started, and we knew why it's going to come in, and it did. So did the variants, and so did Omicron. And I think we are all ready to we are all set to respond as we did in the past. If you look at the hospitals, if you look at the response, if you look at the contact tracing, and also that Federal Ministry of Health and NCOC are all there for all the guidelines, and we've been operating as diligently as we could.
Dr. Zaeem, the society has really been affected by this COVID-19. whether it be mentally, whether it be emotionally, whether it be physically, as in getting the disease or losing a loved one, or whether it be also economically, and the fact that it has impacted the education system, it has impacted jobs, it has impacted a normal lifestyle of a person. How can one resume normal life under all these circumstances?
It's very tricky if you look at how dangerous it was back in 2020, early 2020, and how all the streets were empty across the globe, and there was no physical activity, there's no business activity. There were all lockdowns. We have become much better now, and we have become much better in terms of response to the COVID, to the treatments, and we are much better by having the vaccines in the market. And back then there were no hope, no vaccine, no hope. Now we have vaccine, we have the treatments, we have the research on top of that. So what it really impacted a lot of youth and all those people who remained under the lockdowns started manifesting a lot of mental health issues, physical health issues.
Of course.
Because they didn't do much. You'd see a lot of people, not because of no physical activity.
Gaining weight.
Weight is one, and then NCD is non-communicable disease. This has been one of the increasing rates of cardiovascular events. Mental health problems, reporting of a lot of, suicide rate has increased. These are all the things. But as the time goes by, and I think things are becoming much normal. If you see, now people are coming out. The only thing that we want people to understand is do social distancing. Be responsible if you have fever. Follow SOPs, and those are the things put in place. Just stay at a distance, go out there, sit in the sun.
I think I think it's really recommended by all the doctors concerned to go in the external environment, and now even in this winters, if you are inside your homes, try to ventilate your homes, because this is very important, isn't it?
One of the major factors that actually help spread of the virus is like closed, settings where a lot of people, sitting under one roof in one room without ventilation. So you have to keep your windows open when you have people come in. And when it amidst what we see, like Omicron is right across the corner, and we have Omicron cases reported, and there's nothing to, it was the first wave, the second wave, we have gone through the third and the fourth wave. Omicron was supposed to come here.
All right.
And when it has come here, so the only thing we always advise, as you see on social media, we want people to follow SOPs. We want people to get vaccinated. We want people who are eligible to get the boosters should get the boosters. And if you do that, I think, and this research shows that if you are vaccinated, there are less chances that you become infected. There are less chances that you have severe symptoms. There are least chances that you die of the COVID.
There's another thing that I would like to ask your point of view on, is that is the involvement of the local leaders, whether they be the ulama, whether it be the those who conduct the jamaats at the mosques, or whether it be local leaders on any community front. How important is their role as well? Because I have seen myself firsthand in a lot of mosques for Friday prayers or other sermons that there is A, no social distancing, B, the masks are not there. How important is it for those religious leaders to tell their people who are attending these the congregations that they need to follow the SOPs?
I remember the first time I went to Barako, when we diagnosed some of the virus infected individuals there, and how we had to involve all the religious scholars and religious leaders. And through the course of the times, I mean, you remember you talked about anti-vax. There are people in every cadres of life where they have different.
Of course, reasonings for not getting themselves vaccinated.
So I think one of the major support that we have received until now, although we do see that there are violations of SOPs, but what really matters is like pushing people to get vaccinated, pushing people to follow SOPs, pushing people to, and then tracing them from their own circles and making sure that so they're doing the right risk communication. It's a complex mathematics. When you have one diagnosed on one part of Islamabad and they tell you there was another person whom I have been hanging out with, and they identify and we go test them. So it's a complex mathematics that keeps people at home and stops the spread. But also, you are right. There has to be a strict compliance with the SOPs in the mosques, any religious congregations, and we did get a lot of help from the religious scholars, and we hope that all those who are not following will follow those.
Dr. Zaeem, how complicated or strenuous has been the impact of COVID-19 on contact tracing and of course the partial lockdowns that had been taking place across our city in Islamabad, because of course you concerned with that, and other cities as well, and how important is that as well? How has that worked for the benefit of the people in the form that the virus has not really spread as it could have spread, like in India, for example?
I'll give you some statistics. Islamabad has highest number of cases diagnosed to the population.
All right.
Right. Islamabad has the lowest mortality. You cross-check it with any, or benchmark it with any of the capitals, or within. You know, Islamabad has run the highest number of tests per capita, like if you look at the population. And Islamabad has 77% fully vaccinated and 92% partially vaccinated population. So we had a very good system in place, and a lot of foreign delegations who visited us always gave us very good feedback, and they always told us that when the complex systems are made easier to operate, and these are the results that we get, like in terms of vaccination, in terms of like good contact. And one of the best parts that has been, if you ask any of your friends who got positive, our teams would reach their doorsteps.
Yes, I've heard many stories of that, that your teams have said and even have isolated others who were in contact with that.
And that's what we call it risk communication. We tell the people in the surroundings. We were successful to do one thing, to breaking that myth that somebody in your neighborhood is positive. A lot of people call us like, can you just take them out from here? So we always convince them that this is the virus, it does not discriminate. Maybe they have it today and probably you'll have it tomorrow.
All right. It has caused a lot of issues, and you talked about the mental issues, but also this discrimination, this racial discrimination is something that has really come out because of a pandemic like COVID-19. Now, let's come a little bit towards the vaccines, Dr. Zaeem. Different vaccines. We started with the Chinese Sinopharm, Sinovac, and then the Pakistani made batch of the vaccines as well. Then came the others like AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna, and all the others. Now, of course, there is the boost time to take our booster shot, 6 months. This is in fact the information that 6 months after your second dose, you need to take now your booster shots. If you are 50 plus, you can take it now. If you're 30 plus, starting from the 1st of January, you can take those shots as well. Should we mix and match the vaccines? For example, if I had taken Sinopharm for my first 2 doses, should I go for Pfizer or Moderna as my booster dose, or should I continue with Sinopharm?
Okay, so first thing is I would want to tell you about the criteria to get the boosters. Until now, it's 50 years plus, and you had your vaccine 6 months ago. Secondly, you are a healthcare worker of any age.
All right.
And then you're working in the health, and you're healthcare worker. Sure. And then if you are immunocompromised or any kind of like chronic ailment that keeps your immune system compromised. So and then the similar, like if you had your second dose 6 months ago. When it comes to the type of the vaccine, there's no harm officially. There's no harm in like if you have gotten some vaccine, Chinese vaccine, so you can get a European or American vaccine. Or you have gotten your American vaccine, then you can get your Chinese as a booster dose, and there's no harm in it.
All right.
And I think a lot of people who have come to the centers, and we have a very good state-of-the-art vaccine across Islamabad. We have very good vaccination system, and I'm not saying that we run it, because a lot of people who have come in have given us a lot of good feedbacks on the vaccination processes and how smooth it has become. And there are people who cannot go out, we reach to their homes. There are people who don't want to get vaccinated, we reach there and we convince them, and they have to get vaccinated. We take help from the enforcement agencies if we need. And then people who can actually, Islamabad has like equally distributed vaccination centers to the closest to each area or each sector.
All right.
That's how we have managed.
All right. Looking at the future of this pandemic, what 2022 has to offer, and what our future years are going to offer as far as this pandemic and its different variants and mutations. I'm sure there are going to be many others that will be coming over the years. We also have the Pfizer pill that is coming out, that you can just take it to avoid the severe forms of the infection, or the Merck pill that is coming out as well. What, in your point of view, as a healthcare worker and somebody who's been heavily involved with COVID-19, is going to be the future? Will we be getting our booster doses every 6 months, as per se? Will we start to take pills in the future in order to avoid? And will be in the 10 years to follow also be following the SOPs?
COVID-19 is changing so drastically that I cannot predict at this point how is it going to be in future. But when it comes to the treatments, whenever your doctor suggests, you can take the treatment. Whenever your doctor says, because the treatment we cannot suggest treatments like being here, sitting here.
Of course.
And that will be a lot of ethical dilemma for a lot of people out there, and who might, if I may say, you should take the pill, and people do that. So, number two, vaccine, I think there has to be a booster. And as long as the COVID-19 is here, and as long as we have to live with it, we have lived it through the four waves until now. This is the 5th wave, and maybe the 6th or 7th. But the pandemic history suggests that pandemic gradually goes away.
All right. So let's hope this pandemic also gradually goes away, and before the end of 10 years that we might be really heaving a sigh of relief as far as this pandemic is concerned. Thank you very much, Dr. Zaeem Zia, District Health Officer, Islamabad, to have joined us, to have talked to us in detail, and despite a little hindrance of the mask that you put on after a minute or so, I can safely say that I had a very lively discussion, a very informative and interesting discussion as far as 2021 and what that had to offer as far as COVID-19 is concerned. We really hope that the society comes together as one as far as combating this pandemic is concerned, because if we don't act as one, then this pandemic is going to remain in our society. So thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you very much.
And now let's come to our last three news items very quickly. First of all, let's go to Tehran, Iran. Of course, the 8th and possibly final round of talks are going on as far as the JCPOA is concerned between Iran and the powers that be. A lot of optimism is emanating out of these talks. They say that there might be some kind of a solution in these talks. A lot of people are also saying this is going to be the final round of talks as far as the JCPOA is concerned. Let's hope for a future. Let's hope for a bright prospect as far as the future nuclear deal between Iran and the important nations might be. And then, of course, ladies and gentlemen, from Iran, let's go to Islamabad and Pakistan and the cold wave that has engulfed the entire country. We've seen the first snowfall that occurred in Murray yesterday. We've also seen drops in the mercury as far as Islamabad is concerned. The temperatures really became extremely low. And in Karachi, we had our first rainfall of the season as well. So, of course, the temperatures are changing. The Met Office says that this was going to persist till today. The areas that had the impact of the cold wave include northeast Punjab, Upper Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Potawar region, lower Balochistan, Gilgit-Baltistan and Kashmir. Of course, winter is here, so we are going to see the snowfall and the drop in temperatures. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, Interfaith Harmony, something that our government has been endeavoring for, whether it be through the Kartarpur corridor, whether it be through celebrating the birth anniversary of Baba Guru Nanak ji. This is what Pakistan has been endeavoring for, a country where the people of all religions can live in harmony, where all faiths can exercise their rights to pray in whichever way they want. And of course, the Kartarpur corridor is a bright and shining example of that, and an example that the government put forward for the Sikh community of the entire world, and we're also doing that for the Hindu community of Pakistan. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new stories, segments, end of the year stories as well. Stay tuned and get yourselves vaccinated if you haven't, and follow the SOPs as Dr. Zaeem Zia said. Allah Hafiz.